I'm just gonna be referencing the Vicious Syndicate report. Okay, so I'll just be going through the top few decks in Tier 1 and Tier 2 about kind of the matchups, what are the game plans, what is the mulligan. So just very briefly running through all the decks. So the first one is Beast Hunter. So Beast Hunter is just the top deck on ladder right now. There's no two ways about it. It's just the best. The game plan is pretty simple. All you have to do is just play Curvestone, which means you just play a 1-drop on turn 1, 2-drop on turn 2, and so on. Just try to use your mana efficiently and then just smoothly put things down on the board. So the mulligan plan is also pretty simple. Just try to go for your 1, 2, or 3 drops in the early game. So for the 3 drops, only Wild Spirits. For the 1 and 2 drops, any of these. If you already have a 1 drop, you can keep the Biscuit. Or if you're on coin, you can also keep the Biscuit, then maybe 2 drop into coin Biscuit. Okay, then a couple of the key cards in this deck would be Harpoon Gun. So Harpoon Gun can get you discounted on any of your beasts. That would be kind of a high roll, it would be a good combo to hit. And the second key card would be Pet Collector, because it's a 5 mana and then it's gonna pull out either Red King or Saber, and then that's very high value. Okay, that's pretty much it. So basically you just keep going on board until you just overwhelm your opponent. Okay, moving on to the Spooky Mage. So this deck, what is good is that it kind of counters Beast Hunter and Priest, mainly Blessed Priest and Naga Priest, because you have a lot of freezes, so it's kind of a control deck against board-based decks. Okay, there are two variants. The 30 card version I would not recommend. It's much harder to play and you need to be very aggressive, and a lot of turns are very key. It's much harder to play this deck properly, so I would not recommend this one. The 40 version is a much safer choice. It's also much smoother to play. So in the mulligan, you go for Shivering Sorceress, Wildfire. Snow Flurry is okay as well. And then apart from that, you want Arcane Intellect, Sanctum, and Dungeoneer. You also keep Magister if you have it. Okay, those are pretty much all the cards you keep in this matchup. And the game plan for Spooky Mage in most games is you just play defense. You keep defending until the opponent runs out, or until you eventually have so much stuff with all the skeletons, and then you just keep clearing them, and then with the hero power and stuff, and then you just win from there. So the only kind of combo this deck has is Sivara. So if you already have Sivara in hand, you should be wary of what spells you put in. So some big spells you can put in is like Wildfire, because it's cheap and it increases your hero power even higher. Another big one is Alibi, gives you another turn of like saving yourself. Yeah, those two would be the big ones. What else? What else? Not much. That's pretty much it for this deck. Okay, moving on to Big Spell Mage. Big Spell Mage, personally, I've not had the best experience with it on ladder after the changes, but you can still play it. It's good against both priests, and it's also good against Spooky Mage, so perhaps that's why it's a sensible choice. So the game plan of Big Spell Mage is very simple. You just want to cheat out your big spells. So the key cards is Balinda and Barbaric Sorceress. These two will help you discount your expensive spells and help you win the game. Mulligan wise, you just go for the 1, 2, 3 drops. Basically any of these 1, 2, 3 drops, but also the Evoker, because the Evoker will specifically help you hit your big spells, and those cards are key. Okay, the reason Spammy is in is just to help you in the worst matchups like Aggro Druid or Beast Hunter, where Spammy will be a very good AoE clear for the board to help you buy time until you get to play your big spells. Okay, moving on to Aggro Druid. So this Aggro Druid, this run Compost. If this is too expensive, feel free to just run the Cook. Okay, the Cook. Let me see what the Cook is called exactly. Yeah, the Crooked Cook. So Crooked Cook will work perfectly fine as well if you don't want to run composting. And this game plan is just full on aggression. You just put as much as you can on the board and push the opponent's face. The key card in this deck would just be Herald of Nature. Okay, so you always try to mulligan for Herald of Nature, and then of course you also want a 1-drop to start with. So any 1-drop would be fine. Ideally the Vicious Slither Spear, which I call the Baby Naga. Peasant, if the opponent can't kill it with their hero power. Trog is fine as well. Beaming Sidekick, if you have another 1-drop, it works as well. So pretty much just that. Okay, it's gonna be a full-on aggression deck. Just build as big a board, as wide a board as possible every turn. Always push damage to face whenever possible. Okay, moving on to the Imp Warlock. There are actually two variants. So the Curse variant, I would say it's performing better on the ladder compared to the pure Imp version. It's a bit different both decks. So the Curse version, you want to mulligan for Flame Imp, Librarian, Shipment, Library, and Circle. These are the cards that I would keep in the mulligan. And then your game plan is a bit different. So ideally you want to play Imps for the early game and then play the Curses for the late game. But pretty much you just do the best with the hand you draw, and then it just gets there. Okay, so this deck is good against Spooky Mage. It's favored against a Spooky Mage because the curses go through the alibi. Alibi doesn't work on the curses because the curses you take damage on, the opponent takes damage on their turn, and that is when alibi has already run out. Okay, and then the pure Imp version is it's a different game plan. It's again more board based, similar to the Aggro Druid. So this won't be too good against Spooky Mage, but I believe this will be better in the mirror. So this one mulligan is a bit different because you actually have so many imps, so many 1 and 2 drops, you can actually be a bit picky. So I would keep Flame Imp, Librarian. I wouldn't keep Voidwalker because this is more of a defensive card. Keep Shipment as well, you can keep Bloodbound Imp. I wouldn't keep Imp Swarm. Same thing, Library, Circle. But the special thing about this one is you would also keep Imp King Rafam, because you always have enough enough imps that have died by the time you play Rafam. Compared to the Curse version, you do not keep Rafam in the mulligan. Yes, you can see in the bottom here, these are a few tech cards you can have. So the Denaturus is a popular one. Gigafin is just a good board clear. For example, if the opponent manages to get a board, you can just use Gigafin to block it out. So one common example is Ram Druid plays Miracle Grove, and then they put the big taunt there. You have a bunch of small minions, you can just use Gigafin to get rid of that. Okay, so for both of this, the key card, one of the strongest cards is just the location, which is why I always recommend keeping it. You can just put it down on 2, you don't have to be in a hurry to activate it. Feel free to activate the library whenever you have a bunch of imps. But yeah, that's pretty much for Implock. Moving on to Blessed Priest. This deck is very strong, particularly at High Legend. I would not recommend you to play this deck if you're not too confident with it. This is a very difficult deck to play. Personally, I also struggle quite a lot with the deck. Mulligan wise, you're supposed to keep Radiant, Thrive, Handmaiden, and Switcheroo. This is just a basic mulligan. It kind of changes depending on the matchup and depending on your comforts. Like for example, against aggro, some people keep Gift of the Naaru as well. So how this deck works is you just try to draw cards for the first few turns, and then usually between turn 4 and turn 6 you get a big pop off. You play Radiant, you play a bunch of spells, then you play Valish, refill your mana, play even more spells, and then you just buff the Radiant until it's very big, a lot of health, and then you bless, and then you play Boon, and then you have 2 huge minions on the board in just one turn. The reason Identity Theft is in the deck is just to give it a bit more value, so if somehow your game plan fails, or you're still in the middle of trying to draw more cards, this is where Identity Theft comes in. Try and steal some of the good cards from the opponent, and sometimes the theft actually helps you finish the game off. It happened a couple of times for me, where I ran out of the minion pressure, but the Identity Theft gave me something so powerful like the Mage Hero card, and I actually won from that. But a very high skill deck. Actually, I would say this is the highest skill deck in the meta right now. So unless you're really confident, I would not recommend playing this one. This one is very good against Beast Hunter and pretty much most of the decks here, except Spooky, except the mages. Because the mages can freeze your big minion, and also not that good against Shaman because Shaman has Primordial Wave, but not as bad as if it were against Mage. Okay, moving on to Naga Priest. So this is a very unpopular deck, even though it's very strong. It's quite a simple deck. As said by Naga Priest, it just works based on the weak. So ideally in Mulligan, you want to have Baby Naga. This is what you keep, Baby Naga and weak. You also keep this 2 mana Scribe. You can keep also Cathedral and Thrive. So your game plan is you want to put Nagas down, and you want to buff them with the weak, and then you want to put more Nagas down and buff more of them with the weak, and then you just keep going just like this the whole game, and you'll find that this deck just has so much value just from playing the weak, and you just kind of snowball games from there just by repeatedly playing the Serpent Weak. So in some games where you actually don't find Serpent Weak, then those games are a little bit trickier. Okay, you can see many similar cards with Blessed Priest, so sometimes you can get a similar combo off and play out a big boon. So yeah, there are some similarities in the play, but this is more focused on playing your Nagas and getting the Serpent Weak down. Okay, matchup wise, same thing, it's better against Mage, but pretty decent into the others, except Shaman as well, and it is not as good into Beast Hunter. Okay, and then also about the Mulligan, if you know that you're going into an aggro deck like Aggro Druid or Imp Warlock, then definitely keep your Samro for an AoE clear later on in the game. Okay, and now moving on to the last deck we have, the Control Shaman. This deck isn't new to the meta at all. It barely has any new cards from the expansion, only Sylvanas, because that's a great card. This deck has a few combos which I'm gonna go through. So one of it is the Null combo. So this involves evolving your Null early by playing the Null for cheap and then using either Mark Pools or Primordial Wave to evolve it into a very problematic 10 drop that your opponent will have to deal with. So how it works is ideally you have Null, Mark Pools and Schooling in your Mulligan. You play Schooling to increase your hand size with all the Piranhas, and then you find a turn where you can get Null down, probably value trade one of the opponent's minion, and then evolve it with Mark Pools. That's the combo. Sometimes you can win games just off that, literally, like you could evolve Null into Denatrix, probably game over. You could evolve Null into the 8/8 that rushes with a Death Rattle, summon another 8/8. That's also pretty much game over. What is that card called? Let me see. The Stoneborn General, right? You could also evolve into Onyxia, get a rush. Also could evolve into Deathwing, 12/12, or like a Locola with Rush, Wind Fury, stuff like that. That's the first combo of this deck. The second combo is Clownfish. So basically, Clownfish reduces the cost of your Murlocs, and then you can just pretty much spit out a whole board very quickly, especially when you get to combo Clownfish with Bolner, and then the Bolner repeats the Clownfish, and then you have a bunch of Murlocs that also have Battle Cry, and then it keeps repeating, and then you get a whole bunch of stuff out. That's one of the other combos. The third combo would be, where is it? Macaw. So Macaw combos with a whole bunch of things. It can combo with Mutinous. So one way this works is, for example, you go Bolner Mutinous, eat the enemy's minions, and then you go Macaw after that to keep eating minions, and then your opponent just loses all their key cards from their hand. That's one of the popular ways to use Macaw. And the other way would just to be to Macaw with the Brukan. So it actually replays the hero card's Battle Cry, and then you'll get 2 random hero powers down. Okay, so keep in mind that Macaw also works with Brann and Bolner. Okay, so pretty much those are the key interactions of this deck. Mulligan wise, you would try to ideally get the no schooling Magpul combo. Otherwise, you could also keep Clownfish. Basically, you just want to keep cards that will let you get a good combo going. And if you don't have a good combo, then you just keep the early game cards. Magpul, Bolner, Sleetbreaker, Clownfish, Cookie, possible if it's aggro, and Caverns and Command, because these two are just a very high value and are gonna help you with the board. Okay, so the game plan, you pretty much just try to perform one of the combos that I mentioned. Otherwise, just keep going, play minions for value, not pretty much self-explanatory, and then you should eventually win the game, just like that. Alright, I guess that's it.